Today we're headed to a tiny town with, in true Texas fashion, has a larger-than-life legacy, Round Top. What began in the 1960s as a small antiques fair in a rural dance hall has since blossomed into a twice-yearly pilgrimage for designers, collectors, and tastemakers alike. Over the course of several weeks, this charming town with a population of less than 100 people transforms into a cannot-miss destination where high-end antiques, architectural salvage, vintage textiles, and beautifully curated wares are thoughtfully showcased across barns, tents, and open fields. Joining me for today's conversation is Stephanie Disney, whose family has played an integral role in this story as the owners of two landmark venues, the Big Red Barn, where it all began, and Blue Hills, a favorite among returning shoppers for its elevated aesthetic and warm southern charm. We explore the history and heart of Round Top, what goes into creating this unique shopping and lifestyle experience, and how the event has become a seasonal ritual for so many. Whether you're a longtime visitor or simply a dreamer from afar, this episode is full of inspiration and a few insider tips that you will want to keep tucked away for your next treasure hunt. So, let's head to Round Top. Welcome to Grandma's Silver, where tradition meets today. I'm Allie, your host of the Grandma's Silver podcast and founder of the Grand Millennial Lifestyle. Here, we blend aesthetics with nostalgia, engaging in conversations with lifestyle brands, designers, and more to rediscover the timeless charm of the past. Join me as we journey from home to heart, illuminating the past and polishing the present with the gleam of Grandma's Silver. Stephanie, thanks for being here today. I'm excited to chat. I have had this topic on my list for a while now.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Let's start with an introduction, I suppose, right? So tell everyone who you are and your role in particular.
Yeah, so I am Stephanie Disney, and I am part of a family business that owns and operates two of the premier venues in Round Top, Texas. So we own the original show, which is called the Original Round Top Antiques Fair, which is the show that started Round Top in 1968. And then we also own and operate Blue Hills, which is the largest venue just a mile down the road from the Big Red Barn.
Okay, now let's talk about this history for a minute because, of course, as someone I haven't visited yet, it's on my list, but as someone who follows the world of design and antiques and loves all of these things, it's obviously very well known now as sort of a pilgrimage of sorts for designers and antique lovers and vintage, thrifters. And how did that start? I mean, understanding you're connected to what is considered the original, is that really its origin?
Yeah, so in 1968, a woman named Emma Lee Turney, who was an antique dealer and had gotten connected to a lot of families in Houston who were trying to source antiques, mainly from England, she kind of as an offshoot of her business, she decided to start a show, and she chose Round Top because a lot of the families she was, or women really she was working with, had second homes there. It's right in between Austin and Houston. She started it as a weekend show in the fall of 1968, and then she just kept doing it every spring and fall. And then it was so successful and it kept growing, her original show. And then just kind of over the years, all these other shows started to pop up around her show. And so now you have probably over 50 independently owned and operated venues. Some of those might be like our other venue, Blue Hills, which is almost 60 acres, 150,000 square feet of seasonal retail, which is huge. Or it might be, one field with a couple of tents thrown up with dealers in there. So there's kind of a huge spectrum of what a venue means. But all this to say, it all is on a rural, beautiful highway near Round Top, Highway 237. And so as you drive down the highway, it's a 2-lane highway. You'll see, venues on either side of the road. Like I was saying, some are going to be like the Big Red Barn that have, some of the most high-end European and American antiques you can find in the world, and some are going to be more like vintage finds that you're going to have to search for. That's kind of how it all started, and it's just this uniquely Texas phenomenon that, yes, now draws, I think with social media and the internet, it kind of exploded and now draws hundreds of thousands of people a year.
How has it kind of I mean, and obviously, I mean, you can speak to bits and pieces of this history, but how has it transitioned? Of course, you just mentioned social media, but like from kind of being more regional, this casual, smaller thing that someone started to, I would argue with it, it kind of put Round Top on the map.
Yeah, so I think the woman, Emily Turney, who started it, just had like such a commitment to quality and certain types of antiques, like American antiques or
Mm.
Americana in particular. And she had really high standards. There was a group of dealers who kind of got over her high standards and like really particular rules about everything. And they decided to go start their own venue, which was Marburger Farm, which is another really big venue in Round Top. And so they kind of had, it was all still antiques, but had a little bit looser rules. I think just over the years, people saw the success of others. And I think for antique dealers, you can come to Texas for 2 to 3 weeks and make a year's salary. It's just this magic combination of people looking, I think in the beginning, it was a lot of people looking to outfit, wealthy individuals looking to outfit their second and third homes. And now it's a mixed bag of all sorts of different people. That in the beginning was kind of like what helped the growth is that it's in the middle of nowhere. Land was cheap. It was a relatively easy thing to do to just join in on this seasonal festival. And then now, what I've seen, I started as a shopper, 20 years ago. And back then, it was not an elevated experience. It was hot. You were like in workout clothes walking through fields for miles, like forgetting where you parked your car. Like it was a very different experience. And I really do think Instagram like completely changed this because now in the last, I'd say 7 to 10 years, it's a scene. Like it's a fashion
Yeah.
scene, it's an event scene. There's like a round top look. It's all about what you're wearing and like what are you going to this dinner and this, really beautiful field? Did you get tickets to this exclusive other event? So it's really morphed into a fully well-rounded experience versus the thrill of the hunt.
Yeah, I mean, having not been, but having heard all about it, it has this mysticism of almost like an antique lover's Coachella or Fashion Week. There's just so much surrounding it, and there is a whole vibe that offshoots from it. Like you mentioned, there's an aesthetic that goes with it. People are planning their outfits in advance, they're planning their experiences in advance, they're really making it a trip, not just like a flea market visit.
Yes, and I think because it's out in the middle of nowhere, it's very hard to book lodging. There's a limited number of restaurants, and so you really do have to like plan in advance. You can't, unless you're local, like Houston or Austin, you can just drive up for the day. I feel like it's coveted. Like people will be like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I really want to go, but I can never, I'm always too late and I can't get a hotel room or I can't, so I think that probably contributes to some of that too.
Yeah, like by proxy, it has an exclusivity to it.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I mean, if we are talking about some of the things that have kind of evolved as part of the experience, for lack of a better word, could you go into a little bit more of what that looks like for folks who are looking like over the course of a couple of weeks to come out and see what it's all about?
The bar restaurant scene has really taken off in the last few years, and there are a lot of like really charming restaurants and bars and bed and breakfast and hotels. So I think right off the bat, I would say booking 6 months in advance, or if you find a place that you're like, oh, this is where I want to stay, getting on their email list so you know right when they release rooms. Planning ahead, I think, is really beneficial. We put out a perfect trip to Round Top thing in our show guide before the show comes out, and it kind of helps you like, here's a sample plan of like everything you can do. Like, here's where you should have breakfast, and here's where you should have lunch, and be sure you make reservations in advance for this cute spot for dinner. So there's all of that. And then there's also now, like, since the fashion portion has become such a huge scene, there are like fashion shows, lots of neat events like that. There's always ticketed events, whether it's a designer's coming in and they want to host a dinner, different brands will come in and like pop up and want to connect with their shopper, their shopper base, like their Texas base, if they're like a national brand. And so they'll do a customer type event. So there's always things like that going on.
Kind of going off of the mysticism of it all, right? And the exclusivity of it all. What sets it apart or makes it more or less special than other antique fairs? I mean, because we see those all over the country. So why Round Top?
Round Top is definitely the largest. So I would say, first and foremost, what sets it apart is the size. And then, and like number of vendors who are coming in from all over the world. Honestly, we estimate it's around 4,000 vendors. Hard number to calculate, but that's our best guess. What's unique to Round Top is that you have the best antique dealers in the world, definitely the country. A lot come though from overseas, all in one place for like a 2 week period. You go to Round Top and have an antiquing experience that you really couldn't have anywhere else because of the quality of the merchandise, the variety of the merchandise. It's the best selection of probably European antiques that you would find in one place in America. Roughly $1 billion industry, the import of European antiques into America, and the majority of that is happening through Round Top. I think just because in recent years, most dealers have their best sales in Round Top. A lot don't even do other shows anymore because
Wow.
it just brings so many people, it just brings so many people together. And so I think that is what makes it worth the trip. Like I think when I've experienced other antique shows, the scale is just so much smaller and the offerings are just more limited.
This is my own curiosity because I actually have an event planning background and I always appreciate the hard work that goes in behind the scenes. So, could we talk a little bit about, especially being part of, I know you have multiple kind of venues under your belt, but being part of one of the more, I mean, the original and one of the most esteemed, could we talk about what that behind the scenes prep looks like or how you plan ahead? And that's a lot of work that goes into planning several weeks of your year.
Yeah, so really lucky to have like a great team in my family. And I work with my brother and my sister, and then we have other staff too. Basically, the minute one show ends, we're on to the planning the next show. Our two venues are just very different in the way that they run and the way the programming is. Like Blue Hills is huge, and we see, 70,000 people come through in 2 weeks. And so with that, mostly what's going into the prep is like a lot of curation of antique dealers and like where's their location and what's the customer experience like? How do we place people? Thinking about how people walk through or move through the venue. It's so much more like signage
Yeah.
and what work needs to be done, around the venue. This gravel road needs to be redone, like, so really, I feel like a lot of the event prep is more heavy lifting and less, individual events. We don't do as many small events over there. It's just more the focus is the shopping. The Big Red Barn it's smaller. It's just a kind of a different venue. Blue Hills is free entry, free parking, but at the Big Red Barn, you have to buy a ticket to enter. And then we also have like a designer focused event where it's geared towards the trade. It's a limited number of people. And then we like bring in celebrity designers, but really it's focused on the trade. So it's people who have something interesting to say about using antiques in design, For the fall, we're bringing in Michelle Adams, who is editor-in-chief of Lonnie magazine, and then also Olga Nyman, who just came out with the book Spatial Alchemy. We try to have like a different theme for each event. And so that, obviously it takes a whole lot of programming.
You mentioned vendors and kind of figuring some of that out, and maybe the approach is a little different depending on the space. But how does that selection process work?
We've owned Blue Hills for over 7 years and we've tripled it in size since we bought it. It's changed obviously a ton over time. And right now we don't have a ton of openings. So generally it's like word of mouth. We very much are like cultivating a community of people. Like Blue Hills is a long show. It's 15 days. And by the time you come to set up and leave, I mean, we're all together for 3 weeks. So we joke that it's like summer camp for adults. It's a community. And so all that to say, that's really important to us. And then we also just really want to have a wide variety of offerings. And so we try to have something for everyone. So we have a lot of really high-end European antiques, but we also have affordable vintage and some really well-done reproduction. There's definitely fashion and jewelry and vintage boots and new boots. Trying to have something for everyone, trying to think about what are we missing? Like, do we not have enough American? Do we not have somebody who sells really good silver? There's always things like that we're trying to be sure we have. The vendors really like designers and people coming to shop who are in the trade because, those are great relationships to have and they will come buy for clients and they'll, buy in mass. And so I think thinking about balancing that of like, how do we have a good variety of dealers who are selling quality
hmm
that works for just the regular person and also works for the collector, the designer, all of that.
Because you have to have such a variety and kind of appeal to the masses, if you will, and make sure that there's a little something for everybody. Are you also reassessing that each season based on different, because you are working a lot with designers and folks in the trade? Are you looking at, I don't want to say trends, but things where there is higher demand?
For sure. And I think what's interesting about being in the antique world is there's definitely like trends that you see in old things as things become available. Vintage Mexican pottery, so hot right now. 10 years ago, maybe not as much. In the spring, I was like, there's swans everywhere. Everybody has some type of swan. So I feel like it happens naturally a little bit. I think there's probably things that are oversaturated, but what's also nice with the antiques is it's really like interior design. Everyone has their own take on it. Even if 5 people all sell French antiques, none of their booths are going to look identical. They're all going to
Yeah.
have their own take and maybe they shop in different parts of France. Everybody has different people they're buying from. So that's a really good question. I don't feel like anybody necessarily is no longer on trend. People in the industry are generally pretty good at keeping up with
Yeah.
being nimble.
And it is so interesting. And I forget exactly how you just phrased it, but it is so fascinating, this trend in old pieces. Even those come and go, become popular or more valuable or more just people are literally hunting for them or so it is really interesting. And I do feel like, especially because you have really high caliber vendors, most of them are on the pulse of that. I was just curious if on the back end, if that's something that like you're thinking about or like, okay, let's make sure we have more of this kind of like this style collector or something like that. It sounds like a little of both.
I think a little of both. I mean, we've certainly had the experience of somebody contacts us or applies and puts their best foot forward. And then after a couple shows, we're like, hey, wait, that doesn't look like what it looked like a year ago. With COVID and when it was harder to get to Europe and people were relying more on people shopping for them in Europe and then shipping the
hmm
container, but they weren't going over themselves. Like sometimes the quality was not what it was, which I mean, that was just a crazy moment. But I just think there can be shifts. There can be, people can start out with one look and then move into another look. And sometimes that doesn't fit
everyone's experience, I feel like, is never exactly the same anytime they were to go because it's kind of like this constantly in flux experience. But for first timers, what would you say they should expect?
Try to plan in advance as much as you can, depending on your goals for the trip. Some people go and they're like, I just want a fun girls' weekend. Like, I'm not really looking for anything in particular, just want to experience it with friends. That's one thing. But if you're going with a mission, like if you're going to furnish your own house, if you're trying to furnish other people's houses, I think it's good to be really clear about, okay, here are my goals, and then doing research on the front end to see, like, okay, where should I go, and kind of editing down your top picks. And you can do that a variety of ways. We put out a great guide. If there's an interior designer you like who's gone, they have a guide, looking at their guide, following people on Instagram, whether that's dealers or venues, so you can kind of see what to expect at different places, because you could waste a whole lot of time searching for something somewhere that like you were never going to find in the first place. In our guide, for example, we do this, it's like a choose your own adventure. And it's like, what
Okay.
are you looking for? Do you like to dig? That's the number one thing I would say. Like, do you want to go dig through fields? Maybe you'll find some amazing stuff. You're going to spend hours in an unair conditioned tent digging for things. Is that the experience you want? Or do you want a much more curated experience? Okay, I know I can go to Blue Hills and I can get that French buffet. I can get a pair of lamps. After you do it once, you've got a better feel for it, but it's just it's the type of thing that until you get there, you're like, what is this place? Just depending on the experience you want to have, I do think as much as you can plan out your days in advance and then leave a little bit of extra time for, like, oh, we drove by that place and it looked cool. Let's just pop in there.
I'm a big thrill of the hunt kind of person, so I forget that a lot of people need way more strategy.
You
And
know,
they
yeah.
just want like that mission and like they're here for, I think you even said the word mission, right? Like they're here for a very specific purchase and like they just want it brought to their car. They're not looking for that whimsy, get lost, see what you stumble upon, treasure hunting kind of feel. Whereas that's like, I live for that. So I forget that other people aren't there for that purpose.
Yes, I'm like you. I'm the same way, but I've also been going around top for 20 years, so it's just second nature now. If you're coming in from out of state or wherever, I mean, you're going to have a limited amount of time. And so I think being aware of what you are like and
Yeah.
then trying to curate your experience to that so that you have a good experience. If you love to just get lost in it and you have the time, it's definitely the way to do it.
Because we were talking about designers. Um, and of course, like folks who are in the trade and it's seasonal. So understanding like the quote unquote trends in vintage kind of fluctuate and change all the time. Are there things that as someone who's like enmeshed in this world, you're seeing designers really expressing a lot of interest in right now or folks looking for?
Yeah, I think there's been a big shift away from the stripped wood look and the painted look. We're back to brown wood, darker pieces. British design sensibilities is also very in, mixing patterns and mixing time. Maybe I have this mid-century industrial light fixture with an antique French sideboard. I don't, like,
Yeah,
um, I
not
think I
being
think
tied to like one period. Yeah.
not being tied to one period, just more of an eclectic mix. Interesting vintage art, like old portraits. We have one dealer who has a lot of like Flemish art, sells out. A lot of Murano glass,
I've been
popular.
hearing a lot of designers talking about Murano glass, which is interesting.
There's the vintage Murano. I've got a vintage Murano light in my office. We have a dealer who specializes in new Murano, what you would think of when you think of Murano. But then she has a lot of things that are way more modern looking. It's just interesting, and it's different and the kind of pieces that you're not gonna see in your regular home retail experience.
Kind of talking about pieces, styles. Are there things that, and also being surrounded and like engaging and having these conversations with tastemaker or like celebrity designers or, whatever we want to call them. Are there things like you're learning or or ways that you think Round Top serves as almost an educational experience for people who are visiting?
Yeah, what's really neat about Round Top also is that we have a number of businesses or vendors that come and they are mainly to the trade wholesale businesses. They're to the trade only. So they do Round Top at retail level so they can kind of like try new products and like interface with customers in a way that they don't typically get to because usually they're just with a store buyer at a market that's to the trade only. It's like an interesting intersection in that regard for people to get feedback. And then you just see it's all small businesses. And so you see they might end up being neighbors. I mean, there's so many groups at Blue Hills specifically that they'll be next to each other and then get to know each other and become friends and then they'll like collaborate on something. It's so many creative people and so it becomes like its own little incubator.
Going back to experience, you were kind of talking about the atmosphere a little bit and the fact that also people need to plan ahead because things are limited. Do you have any personal suggestions or things that like you love as far as food or lodging or when people are telling you that they're coming to town, like what you're quick to recommend to them?
I mean, so if I was like sitting down with someone, which before social media and all of that, like 15, 20 years ago, if you wanted to know how to do round top, like you couldn't even find the dates. I would scour the internet trying to figure out like, wait, what are the right dates? And when does this little field that's my favorite open? We just go drive up and down the highway and see what was open. But so all that to say, when I sit down with people who've never been and I'm like, okay, here's a map, here are the best venues. And so that would obviously be our venues. But then also Market Hill is wonderful and it's more of a retail experience. Marburger Farm is great. The compound is a really beautiful, well curated experience. Some of my favorite fields, La Bahia and Chicken Ranch, and those are great little places for digging and great finds, but they're not so huge that you have to spend 3 hours there. And then as far as restaurants and experiences, there are a number of restaurants that do like a fixed menu. Botter Ranch is a venue, but they also have a restaurant, like a chef-driven restaurant within their little barn that is a neat indoor outdoor kind of experience of beautiful hayfield and so people like go there for sunset and watch the sunset and get dinner. There's a place called Oak Bones. It's like another chef-driven place, and they'll have different theme nights, and they have like a lovely patio. There's all these places that offer like a unique round top experience, which generally means beautiful fields, being out in the open, experiencing that, Texas sunset. Round Top itself is a very small little city. Population's like 87 and it's tiny geographically, but it has an adorable square that's all walkable. And so there's like some cute restaurants and bed and breakfasts that are right on the square. So if you stay there, you can walk to shopping, you can walk to restaurants, and lots of really wonderful restaurants have opened in the last few years. Some of our favorites are Boone and Company, Lulu's, and the brewery, which it's like Round Top Brewing, and they make their own beer, but then they also have like a really neat menu. It's just a neat, quaint little place.
Now, kind of going off of the experience, because I'm a very tradition driven, like I love to hear about that kind of stuff, and that may not apply. But generally speaking, when you have events like this that have especially the kind of evolution and growth that Round Top has seen, are there things that have become ritual or tradition that are now part of the experience during its seasons?
Yes, absolutely. I think, and especially there are women that I've gotten to know just from my job over the last several years because they're there every opening day in Round Top. It's like a 2 week-ish period of time that the shows are all going on, but different venues open on different days. And so it's like this whole big thing. People wait in line to get in and then they like run to their favorite vendors. I've met so many people just because it's like every opening day, like I'm there like opening the gates or selling tickets. They're there and early and so we're like chatting and so yes, I think those groups of women who like come every show, they're there for each opening of each venue, they'll be like, okay, well, on Tuesday night, we go to Royers, which is the oldest restaurant in Round Top, and it's been around for ever and ever. And they have amazing fried chicken. And it's like it's an experience, you know. So they're
Yeah.
like, we get our reservation. On Tuesday, we do this, and on this day, we do this. And then the day this show opens, we go to this show in the morning, and then we do that, you know, like, so yes, I think individual groups of women, absolutely. The town itself, it wakes up. I mean, it's Round Top is mainly weekends only. There's some places that are open all the time, but a lot of it's just Thursday through Sunday the rest of the year. And then during the show, it's like everything's open, it's open extended hours and all of that. One of the best loved traditions is the Junk Gypsies. They are two sisters who I think they had a TV show a while ago, but they have their own store. They host a prom. And so
Wow, how
it's
fun.
it's really fun, and there's always a theme, and people come like dressed wild. You know, it's like live music. It's been going on for probably over 20 years. There are some fun events like that that happen every show, and everybody knows it's vendors and it's shoppers, and that's like a really fun tradition.
That is super fun. The show itself is a tradition, and we have one coming up. I don't know if it's too soon to talk about any of that, but are we able to talk about what folks could expect this fall?
Yeah, the way the show falls, so spring is end of March, beginning of April, and then we have a 4-day winter show at the end of January. The fall show is in October. I just said that all totally out of order.
That's okay.
Now that I'm thinking about it. It goes October, January, March. That the way those shows fall, they're kind of in quick successions. Going from spring to fall is a much larger gap. So
hmm
fall show is always great because dealers have had more time to shop. You know, a lot of them spend the summer in Europe. The offerings, not that they're not good in the spring, they definitely are. But I feel like the offerings in fall can be really great just because of that time. More people also come to the fall, so there might be a little bit more competition in the shopping. For our venues in particular, we have some really exciting pop-ups coming to Blue Hills, Big Red Barn. Like, we're so excited. We do this designer day event, and so we'll have Michelle Adams from Lonnie and Olga Nyman, who's interior stylist and interior designer, with her new book Spatial Alchemy, coming to chat about that. Last show we had some celebrity sightings.
One of the last questions, not the last question, but that I had for you was kind of its legacy. It's on this really incredible trajectory and it has a pretty exciting future ahead of it. But it's also now, I mean, we're talking at least your your one venue was 68. So
Yeah, so over 50 years old.
yeah, so I would say there's a legacy there. What do you think makes it so enduring?
Round has the most fantastic offerings. I think that's why people come back, is because it's so much fun. If you enjoy hunting, I mean, it's just, there's nothing else like it. The quality and the price point, you just can't beat it. I mean, if you're used to buying antiques online and then you come to Round Top, it's like 30 to 40% less expensive. You know, it's just, so
Yeah.
I think there's that, and I think you can see so much at once, and so you really see the value of what you're purchasing because you will see an iteration of the same thing. I also think the dealers are so knowledgeable, so they can tell you the history of a piece, and they can point out details to you and explain when it came from, how they know it came from that time period. You know, they're all experts on their particular antiques that they sell. And so I think also educating shoppers and designers about that makes a difference. I think right now, specifically, people really view antiques and vintage as sustainable. People in their 20s, 30s, it seems, are valuing, oh, well, I'd rather buy an antique piece with a story than something from IKEA or something mass produced. Like, they
Yep.
are interested in having a more curated home. All the small businesses kind of like coming together. I think the one thing people in Round Top are worried about is they don't want a bunch of big companies coming in, or they don't want it to become commercialized. it's always been a very mom and pop small business type event and community. And so I think they really value that. And so they're hopeful that it'll stay that way, which we'll see. I think a lot of people have come in and really invested a lot in the community and in the show, like my family has. And a lot of other people come to Round Top and fall in love with it. We've had a lot of furniture makers or businesses from California like come and they like fall in love with Round Top, buy a shop and have a shop, have
Wow.
a location in Round Top. So yeah, that's my
I could
long-winded
see that
answer.
though. Yeah, because I mean, it is kind of becoming like its own design mecca, but you also don't want it to lose, like you said, that kind of intimacy or that charm. So it is an interesting balance as it grows to kind of see if it can maintain both of those things. The actual last question that I had for you was a little bit more of your own personal experience, but if you had, just having been involved in all of this for quite some time now, if you had any specific favorite memories, or if that's vague, because there's probably a lot of those, if there is anything that you especially look forward to, maybe fall specific.
When we got into the business, I have an interior design and antique background, and my brother has a commercial real estate, and the rest of my family all have a commercial real estate background. And so we saw that our favorite antique venue was for sale 8 years ago. And we're like, well, wouldn't that be a crazy idea for a family business? Here we are, 7+ years later. And what I didn't expect when we bought it is how relational it would be. My favorite part is the people. I mean, it's so fun. It's like such a neat community. It's become a community of friends. What we all look the most forward to is seeing our camp buddies and reconnecting with everyone, especially like at this moment where there's been like so much heartbreak in Texas with
Mhm.
the flooding in Central Texas, and Texas is such an interconnected place. And so even though it's ginormous. And so I think that's always first and foremost what I'm most looking forward to. And then, I mean, the other thing is just everything in my house is like from Round Top. I love shopping. I love the thrill of the hunt. I also do all the photography for the social media, not for the specific events, but for social media purposes. And so I get to see when there's a piece that's really unique and then I scoop it up. So it's fun for me to get to kind of I love to have kind of like a mental list going of knowing who's got what and then I love to help people. If somebody like messages us on Instagram and is like, here's a screenshot of this random thing I saw and it was in your reel. I know where that was and I know whose it is and I can like connect you with the dealer and I really love all of it.
It sounds like so much fun, and I'm a little bit jealous. Well, I'll throw out there that we'll link to things in the show notes. Stephanie, this has been so much fun. Thank you for taking the time to chat. I obviously need to get out there, but I'm so excited for those who will be this fall. I hear all about it all the time from my design pals, and I'm just really excited to follow along and see what you're posting. Just thanks for sharing what is now slowly becoming your legacy as well with us.
Thank you so much for having me and we're so excited. Fall show is October 4th through 18th.